Buenas, buenas, buenas. I'm Vanessa, the host of the Latina Writing Comunidad podcast, empowering women to decenter men, break barriers, embrace passions, and tell their stories. Each episode, I'll unlock the power of stories by exploring popular themes and use them as a starting point for insightful conversations. I'll also be posting the LWC's pre-recorded virtual workshops just in case you want to join and don't know what it's about, or maybe you missed a session. So either way, those will be posted here too. Today's episode, I'm going to be reviewing the book First Gen by Alejandra Campoverdi with my very special guest, Dr. Lisette Sanchez. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. I am so excited and so delighted to be in this space with you today.
I noticed that you weren't on, and I was like, I hope she's resting. I hope she's having a good time, because I know that you do so much. And anytime that I see my friends like doing so many things, it's amazing, it's beautiful, I'm excited, but also in the back of my head, I'm like, are you okay? Like, are you burnt out? Like, are you stressed? Are you, like, what's going on? Like, I'm always, like, conscious of that.
Yeah, and I actually, last year I started a strategy of being really intentional with planning out my year by quarters. And I made my own little vision board, and my vision board requires that I take a week off every quarter. Like, it's a mandatory week off for myself. And so the week off, this time it was 2 weeks because I'm traveling so far away. I'm like, let me give myself the 2 weeks. The wedding itself was a lot of fun, but it was a family wedding. And I don't, and you go any family wedding, there's going to be some rest, but a lot of running around for things. And so I wanted to be intentional at the bare minimum of just no work during these 2 weeks, so that even if I'm doing other social or familial responsibilities, there are things I want to do, right? There are things that I don't get to do as often. And so I'm very happy I went. I'm very grateful. It's just really taxing on the body to travel so far. But I really appreciate you checking in. Yeah, I think as a mental health professional, wanting to figure out how to find my balance, I guess I even paused before I said balance, because balance I think is such a word that holds a lot of weight to it. But with finding maybe my rhythm, I think I lean into more like, where's my rhythm today? What does it look like? And sometimes it varies with my cycle, right? Sometimes it varies with just a project that I have that I'm feeling passionate about. And that's normally when I have to watch out for the burnout signs, when it's something, you understand this because you're similar, like following a passion. And when you're following a passion, you want to do this, you want to work on it, you want to just keep going. And those are the moments where you have to have a pause, right? Which is why it's a mandatory once a quarter break at minimum. Of course, it's more than that, but if you have just been heads down working, look up and notice that you gotta enjoy the work that you're putting out there, and like you do this because you love it, not because you need to, right?
Yeah, I feel that too. And it comes and goes, right? Like, you do so well sometimes, and then, like, the holidays, the new year, the, election, politics, like everything, and then before you know it, this episode's going to drop at the end of March. Like, what? How are we here? Time flies. Like,
yes, it does.
So you have to be intentional about looking up. You really have to.
Exactly.
I loved the book. Like, I didn't realize, I don't like memoirs, and I didn't realize reading it how much I was gonna like it. I literally was just like, oh, it's a popular book, like Dr. Lisette wants to talk about it, like, let's talk about it, it's fine. But like, reading it, I was like, whoa, I really like her, and her story really resonated like with me in like so many different ways. So I'm really glad that we're gonna be doing this episode. And you also hosted the Latina Writing Comunidad, I think in like October-ish.
Yes.
Right? And I thank you so much for that. Like, I'm still very like grateful, because I wish I could pay you for your services and providing that workshop. But one day I will, and I'll invite you back and pay you double to make up for that free session when that day comes.
I love that you founded the Latina Writing Comunidad for lots of different reasons. But, what made it very appealing for me was the fact that there was a space where the investment was your time and reciprocity, right? And so although I love I love being able to get funding to pay folks, right? Because our time is labor, right? And all of that. I also know that there's lots of spaces where if you're first gen, you're Latina, you're any marginalized identity, there's so many of these resources that can seem inaccessible. So to go to a space where, I know every person who shows up and does a talk probably charges very similar rates. Like we all are aware of how much our time is valuable, but we also understand how valuable it is to be in the comunidad of folks who don't normally get access to these kinds of conversations in other spaces. And so I see the value that you're providing to our comunidad, and I think that's why we all volunteer and want to show up.
I think so too, and to really pinpoint on that accessibility component, like I could be charging people however much to attend each session, but because it's not a big group of people, I only have 1,000 followers only, right? I have about 200 emails to inviting people to these sessions, right? So if we're only having 20 people come, in order to compensate people like the way that they deserve, I would have to charge those 20 people a lot of money to pay people, right? So my goal and my hope, right, is to continue keeping it free, and then one day when I am able to charge, expand what I'm providing to people and charge a small amount. I don't want to charge 200 people $500 a month, let's say, like something like that, right? I don't want to charge 20 people $500 a month. Like, no, I want to charge 10,000 people like $10 a month, because then it's like super affordable for them and they have access to these workshops, these spaces. Like that's like my goal. And so in the meantime, I'm viewing, I'm not getting paid either, like for all of this. So I'm viewing it as an investment. Like I'm leveraging debt, as like rich people say, right? Like I'm just focusing on part-times, getting some cash in just to keep myself afloat, and really investing in like the longevity of this comunidad and just keep on expanding it, and hoping that one day I can, get to the point where I have the capacity to expand and like hire people to do those things. I don't know. So I'm glad that you see that and like you value that too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I always love the story of how you even started it. I think when we first met, I asked you about it, and then you shared how it also came out from wanting to support another first-gen Latina, and then realized author, so Gigi, and then realizing that you all had similar dreams, and then here we are all supporting each other's dreams. And
it's so beautiful, right? And like there's like 20 of us, right? There's Hadi, there's Esther, there's Yese, there's Ruby. There's so many of us. Like we could, between the two of us, we could probably list like 50 people, like Latinas, who are all doing their own like really powerful, amazing things, and we all just support each other. It's just like a cute, like I love being part of this like group of Latinas that we're in.
I was like bridging. There's so much that I want to say about that, but I think that also connects back to the book that we're talking about and the importance of that. But I love that you love the book, because I love this book so much. And as I went to get my copy to reread it, because I read, I've read this before, and as a psychologist, I recommend this book to all of my clients because I specialize in first gens speaking engagements. I recommend this book. But so I learned about this book. Just want to share a quick story. When her publisher reached out and was like, hey, would you like a free copy of this book? And I read, all I had was a title and a short description. And the moment I read it, my immediate reaction was like, I need to meet this author. I need to meet this woman. Like, I need to know who this is. And I looked up and she was in LA. I'm in LA, right? And so I replied to that email and said, great, I would love a copy of the book, but I'd love to meet the author. Like, I need to meet her. Can we figure that out? And then I found her on social media, and I also sent her a message like, hey, I would like to meet you. Like, I'm first-gen Latina psychologist, all of these things. And then the thing I love about Alejandra is how, similarly, she was like, yeah, I want to meet you. Let's have lunch. And so I was like, all right, I'm gonna have lunch with her. And we had lunch. And by this point, she brings a copy of the book, and I left that lunch crying. Yeah, this is the copy that she gave me that day. And at the end, I very shyly was like, "Would you sign my book?" And she did. And she's like, "This is the first time. This is the first one that I'm signing like this." And so I feel really special to have her first signed like book. And she wrote such a kind message after our meeting. I don't know if you can read it, but it's whatever it is, you can do it, with underlining the you. And it was such a special conversation, such a special interaction. And I want to say that as beautiful of a human as you read this to be, and as you hear her, like, I don't even know that it describes what it's like to share space with her, and what an amazing person she is when you meet her, how welcoming, how just empowering the energy she gives out for folks. And so I know that that is a gift that she has, and a gift that she gives to, like, in every speaking engagement she does, every community she's able to go with. And going on tour for a book like this is tough, and she did it for a lot of last year. She's, I think, on tour right now, and which again speaks to the passion that we were talking about earlier, how important this is for you. So I am a huge fan of Alejandra.
I love that, especially like in her book, though. I'll give you a little synopsis of the book. It's about her journey from being like this perfect daughter to her mom, and all the way to the White House. Like, she worked for the first team solely dedicated to focus on Latino communications for the White House. That's such like a prestigious, like, door opening position to be in. And then for her to write a book and then have lunch with you and sign the book, like, that's so, what, like a treat, right? Like, you know, I can't imagine what that felt like for her after reading her memoir and then meeting a Latina and then knowing how much she's impacted you, and so much so that you wanted her to sign her book. You know, that's such like that's a moment for her to remember. You're remembering it, you're talking about it, you're sharing it with us, but for her, that's such a huge, like, moment. Like, it gave me goosebumps, like, to know that that's her experience. Like, so beautiful.
Yeah. And so, but yeah, so let's talk about the book, though, because there's so much that I want folks, as they're listening in, to feel inspired about, to read it themselves as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, of course, I feel like when I do podcast episodes, if I don't like a book, you can tell, because I don't talk shit. Like, I'm not like out here saying, "Oh, this is a terrible book." Like, I don't really do that. But I won't say, "Go read the book," right? I'll still talk about the things that I liked. I'll talk about myself, right? I try not to, like, shit on people's, like, authors and their works of art, right? But when I like a book, I make it super clear, like, I'm obsessed with this book. You need to read the book. Go get it. And actually, I got my book from the library, so I have to return that book. So this is a library plug. Use Libby if you need to, whatever. You don't need to spend, you know, like the $30 on Amazon to get the book. You can get it from the library if you need to. I don't buy books. I get books from the thrift store. I use Libby, and then now Pen and Honey. It's an online bookstore. She actually sponsors any. If I can't find it on Libby, and if I can't find it at a thrift store bookstore, she'll give me the book too. So I just a shameless plug for her as well. But one of the things that stood out to me, you know, I usually take little notes as I'm reading the book, and the first thing that stood out to me was how she shared that she was, like, outgrowing her family, and just how I think that's very, it might be universal, right, for everyone to outgrow the generation before them. And I think that's kind of the point, right? Like, I don't have any kids. I'm childless, and, like, I would imagine that if I had a child, I would want them to be better than me in every sense of the word. Happier, more money, more access to things, more fulfilled, like, just, I want them to have everything, you know? That's my impression. And so when she's sharing that, it was really nice to see the tension and, like, the sadness that comes with that, but also it's like a privilege to be able to outgrow and step up and move, you know, more progress, kind of. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I always say your parents' ceiling is your floor, right? Like, as high as they're able to go, that's where you start, and then you go from there. And then for me, that's the way that I see as breaking barriers, because I don't know about you, but I grew up hearing we have to break the glass ceiling. We have to break the glass ceiling, you know, especially as women in corporate America or whatever it might be. And when I heard someone say, you know, your parents' ceiling is your floor, I thought, you know, that's what we're doing. We're constantly breaking through these ceilings, breaking through what someone told one generation that was the limit for themselves. And then we get to set whatever this new limit is. And I think this generation, with increased access to resources because of the internet, honestly, because we now have more access. You know, in the past, it depended on what resources were available at your local library. You were limited on what you could access. Now, you know, you talked about Libby. I love Libby. And I had people tell me for years, you should get Libby. It's so great. You got to get Libby. You got to use that. And I was so resistant for, you know, I don't know, like, I have to go to a library to get my library card. There's all these, like, you know, and when you have it may sound like it's not that big of a deal, but when you're a really busy working professional, and here's the thing, libraries have lost a lot of funding, so their hours are more limited. So it's not even that I don't want to go. Oh, I have time today. Oh, it's closed. Or
Right.
I have to go, you know, whatever it might be. But if you're listening to this and you're someone who's been on the fence about Libby, I love Libby so much, and I wish that I had listened years ago when someone told me to get that app, because even if you're not ready for like books to read on there, you can get audiobooks, and that is such a treat to have. But anyway, coming back to what you were talking about, I actually underlined a quote in the book that talks about the encouragement we get from parents, but how it can be a mixed message when it comes to our success as first gens. And I want to read it to you.
I think this is the first time that a guest is going to read an excerpt from the book, so I'm excited to hear what you want to share. I love this.
Yeah, the way you talked about the book, it's for me, you know, this is the first book that I read where I felt so seen as a first gen. And in so many ways, because I also grew up in LA, the book is based in LA, so there's a lot of other parallels. So I want to like highlight that may be a little bit different, but the emotions that she goes through as a first gen, and how relatable she shares her experiences to be, and how, you know, these are many of the dreams that we grew up with. At one point in time, I wanted to go to the White House during a different administration, right? So
Yeah.
but let me stay on the positive thing, which is what I want to talk about this book. So this book, if anyone has it, it's page 167, and I want to say that Alejandra refers to being first gen as first and onlys. So that's how it starts. As is the case for many first and onlys, my mom often encouraged me to reach for the stars. At the same time, she wanted me to stay securely and reliably close by. Her fears of the unknown seemed to surface each time I faced a critical crossroads. So I want to talk about that. Do you remember reading that section?
Yeah, yes. And it's so powerful because it just resonates with everyone, right? And like me being Colombian American, it's like different than being Mexican American. I'm in Jersey, you guys are in LA, so like I acknowledge, of course, that that's different, but it's still like, even if you're like Korean American, Japanese American, like anywhere, it's the fact that like when you come here, your parents want you to excel, but they don't want you to go too far, to stray too far from themselves, their values, their own goals for you. It's just very like representative of their traditions and their culture, and that's fine. It's beautiful. Like I wish that we could do everything and make everyone happy. I just don't know how realistic that expectation is.
Yeah, they want to keep you close, and then they're very risk averse about certain things because of the different inequalities, injustices, whatever it is that they experience. But the way that I think about it and talk to my clients, it's like, well, your parents took especially if you're a child of immigrants, your parents took the biggest risk of all. Like, they bet on themselves and they took a risk to live a whole other life. And here they are telling you to chase your dreams, but maybe not too big of a dream. Like, be safe with your dreams. And my parents, they want my whole life, go to college, it's so important, we want you to chase this dream. Then I applied to colleges, and I intentionally didn't apply anywhere that was less than a 2-hour drive, because I knew that I needed to move out because I needed to grow, and that's what I needed. And so I knew that my parents were very upset with my decision, and when I left to college, they took me, not without a conversation on how I had been brainwashed, how I was abandoning them, how, all of these different fears that they were having, right? They were just expressing how fearful they were about their little girl leaving, because their dream for me, if when they broke it down more, was we wanted you to go to a local community college until you were 25, and then you'd get married, and then at that point you would leave the nest with someone else, right? And that's not what happened. And so they understood eventually that I didn't go away to just leave them, that I purely had interest in studying. But to their credit, like, I did want out of the house, right? We were four people in a 1-bedroom apartment, and they were very strict. So
yeah. I that resonates with me too. I mean, sames. It's interesting because my sister, she's 100% Colombian. Her dad is Colombian, whereas my dad is white. And so growing up, like, my mom, like, didn't know what to do with me. Like, not only is my race white, but my last name is Schwipper. And, like, if I go out into the world, you don't know I'm Colombian or first gen or my mom's an immigrant until I tell you, right? Mm-hmm. Like, when you go out into the world, people know, right? People don't know unless I tell them. So my experience and the way that I experienced, like, high school was very typical of the United States. And my mom had no idea what to do with me. Like, I wanted to go to the mall. Like, my sister never wanted to go to the mall. Like, she was at home with the family all the time because, again, she was more into the, like, Colombian, like, stay home, go to school, listen to your parents. And I grew up in the United States where it was like, no, you have a voice, speak out, you're strong. It was a different culture, so my mom had no idea what to do. So to your point, when it was time to come to college, I did the same thing. I only applied to a school and I dormed there. Even though it was like 30 minutes away, it was right here. I still dormed, and it was like shocking to my mom, and like she was not on the loans, so she couldn't tell me no, and I went and I stayed there. And it's about individualizing, and I don't know if that's the right like way to pronounce that word, but that's how I pronounce it, individualizing, where it's like I needed to figure out what I wanted to do and what I wanted to, like, for my future and for my life, without just like listening to my mom. Because up until that point, being, in high school or a kid, I couldn't do it. I had to listen to her. Like, I was in her house. Like, if I had a phone, I had a car insurance. Like, if I wanted to do anything, I needed her permission. So for me, going to college was like individualizing, getting my own sense of like who I am, making mistakes and not telling my mom about it, coming home to my own dorm and not having my mom be like, where were you? Who was there? What happened? It was like, that was definitely like a goal of mine. And like, I think I've talked about it in past episodes where it's like, I'm glad that I did that. I just wish that I didn't have to do that. I like, just for money purposes, like I spent like 40, 50K to individualize. And then like my loans, they are private loans. So like it's predatory. The interest rate is astronomical, and I'm going to have this debt for an extended period of time, when it's like, I wish that there was a way to individualize that didn't put me in like crippling debt. Like, I feel like I wish that there was another way, but it's a reality. And I think it's part of being born or being raised in the US and having immigrant parents, where it's like there's two cultures and you have to try to figure out what you want from the two cultures, because you ignore stuff from the US, you ignore stuff from like your parents, but you have to like bring them together and create one that's representative and true to you.
Yes, and it's so hard because as a psychologist specialized as a first gen, I'm like, I want to go and talk about this more, but I know that in the book she talked about the trailblazer's hole, and this is one of the parts. I'm trying to remember what she called it in the book. So I think it was, let's see, the breakaway guilt. Is it that one? No, bicultural balancing act. She called it bicultural balancing act.
I
So
like
that
that she did that too. Like she had like different like experiences and like put names to them because a lot of us have these similar experiences, but we
yeah.
don't have like the terminology or a way to verbalize it. But she verbalized like a lot of different experiences. Another topic that she touched on that I really appreciated was emotional inheritance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that impacts like everyone. I don't think that that's just like a first gen experience. Every parent, every grandparent, they experience things. And specifically in this book, Alejandra is, I think, the past like three generations of women, they had been cheated on, right, by their husbands, or I believe that's what it was.
Yeah, I think.
And so that shaped, when you have a kid who her mom and her mom and her mom, they were all cheated on, it really shapes the child and when they're growing up
Yeah.
to experience and expect that from people, and it really alters the way that they show up. And so I really appreciated that she talked about that too, about how everyone has like this baggage and it just goes on to generation and affects us.
And it can go both ways, right? We have I think that's why it's great you call it inheritances, because sometimes they're gifts, but other times it's definitely baggage. It's like your whole life you've seen things done a specific way. You've heard that that's how it was done with the previous generation, right? And these are the generational cycles that people try to break. And some we have more awareness of, and others we're like, how did I find myself in this position, the position that I felt my whole life I was trying to avoid? Like, how do you avoid that, right? But yeah, so, and sometimes we don't even know. We don't even know and don't even realize the different things that are happening. And it can come through the relationships or even some of the behaviors, right? I think she talked about the inherited behaviors and the behaviors and emotions, right? And so with the behaviors, something that I noticed even for myself, right? Witnessing how my parents express their different emotions, and how that impacts how I express my different emotions, like anger, for example. Witnessing my parents experience anger always elicited fear in me as a kid. And now I'm working with my own therapist on how to feel comfortable with expressing anger, because it makes me so uncomfortable to express my anger. And many people may relate to that, because I find that when I'm really upset, I will cry. I have a hard time yelling. I go immediately to my emotions of feeling really hurt, because that comes from the fear that I experienced as a little kid whenever I witnessed anger being experienced in my family. And so now having to balance these tears are actually angry tears. How do I express that properly? And so, but yeah, emotions can be really complicated, especially when you're part of a culture that doesn't want to talk about them.
Yeah, they don't want to talk about things for sure. And it's interesting because you don't want to express your anger, I would assume, is because you don't want to make people afraid the same way that you were afraid when other
Mm-hmm.
people were expressing anger. But that's not necessarily true, right? Like you don't have to scare people when you're being angry or when you're upset, right? Like you can just be angry and share that you're angry and
Mm-hmm.
process it at your own pace. So yeah, and it's probably adds to the anger and the negative experiences if you're not able to share that with trusted people, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and people who want to be there for you. Because I had an event this past week, and I was the speaker for this event, and I felt super prepared, and I was practicing things. And when you have like a monologue and it's supposed to be just about you, you don't memorize the entire speech. You just memorize like the four topics, and
Mm-hmm.
then you bridge how you get there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I did that, and then the day of the event when I was presenting, when it was over, I was mortified. I thought it was so bad. I was very embarrassed at the way that what I brought to the table, it just didn't seem substantial and it didn't seem valuable. The event was a positive event, but it was because there were 20 other Latinas who were on the call who all care about each other, and we all want to build community and we all want to connect. So the event was good, but not because of me, right? And so I share all that to say that this time I was so embarrassed and so mortified that I completely shut down, and I like shut my boyfriend out, and I did tell him that I wanted alone time, and I processed my stuff on my own. But there was a time where I wouldn't tell him. I wouldn't even know what was going on. I just knew that I felt like shit. And like I didn't even have like the terminology or the like verbiage to like say to myself, like, you're embarrassed and that's why you're feeling this way. But I'm really proud of myself that now, after years of therapy and years of practicing, and I have a caring boyfriend who does want to be there for me, he does want to care for me, and he doesn't want me to feel bad at all. I'm really glad that now I'm at a place where I can let him in a little bit and say, like, I need alone time, I'll talk to you tomorrow, you know. And then he's able to hear that, and he doesn't feel bad, he doesn't feel shut out, he understands that I'm going through my own thing. So I don't know, I hear you, and I'm glad that you're working on it, and I know that there's value in sharing and letting people be there for you and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, building your community, finding it is really important. Who are your safe people? How does that work? And I want to share that, I think, especially as a therapist, because I think it's, we go to school. I'm a psychologist, right? So I have a PhD. I went to school for like 13 years to get this degree, right? So I've learned so much. I've been doing therapy. I feel like my first therapy experience was in 2011, right? So I'm doing therapy with folks for a very long time. And that doesn't make it so that I know everything there is to know about my own wellness or patterns and all of that. It's still putting in my own work into it and navigating that. And sometimes I'll be surprised by something like, oh, there's something I didn't know about myself that I just learned. And so having my own therapist so that I can navigate the two worlds of being a therapist and being human, right? And holding space for both of them.
Right, because you're a therapist, but you also are other things as well, right? Like, you're not just a therapist. Have your own friends, you have family, you have your own life, right?
Yes.
So I'm really glad. I love that you're going to therapy and you're exploring that too, because especially as someone who holds space for other people, it can get heavy, right? Like, if you are just providing and giving and giving and giving, it's like, okay, well, who's listening to me? Who's helping me process things? Who's giving me affirmations and caring for me? I'm not even in a position that you're in, but I can feel that, where like I feel like I want to give and give and give, but I'm like, who's hitting me up and asking how I am, and thank God I have friends and my boyfriend and family, it's fine. But if I feel that and I'm not even a therapist, like, I can't even imagine how you are with your clients and your career and your platform, everything.
Yeah, but it's like we talked about earlier. It's about finding your rhythm, and what is your rhythm? Where does it need to be? Sometimes we're dancing cumbia, sometimes we're dancing merengue, and sometimes I need a little bit of a slower song to get me through, whatever it might be. And so, but yeah, actually, I always say rhythm, but I hadn't thought about it with certain songs. Maybe I gotta make playlists for where I'm at. That's an idea. So I'm gonna work on that. I'm like, where's my notepad?
Yeah, write that down. Don't forget.
I forget.
And when you're done with that playlist, please share it, because we all want to listen to it.
Thank you. All right, so I put it down. It's on my note. I don't know about you, but it's my brain. I need to write things down because I have so many ideas all of the time, and
I have like 5 places where I write things down. My phone, Google Docs. I have like 2 notebooks. It's just like, it depends on where I am, and I'm writing it down. But if it's not written down, it's not happening. So I get you.
Okay, so I want to talk about how she talks about imposter syndrome plus. And I want to highlight that because one of my areas of specialty is the imposter phenomenon. So I want to hold space for both terms, sort of what they mean. So for folks who are listening who maybe aren't familiar with the term, imposter phenomenon, or the imposter syndrome, as you may have heard, refers to the experience that an individual has where they feel like a fraud. They feel that their accomplishments are just luck, and at any point, someone will discover they are undeserving of their accomplishments, of whatever they have in their life. And the way that I talk about it, and in the way I think she also talks about it, is recognizes that, one, like, it's a very real emotion that many people have, that self-doubt, that comes up. And so we don't want to ever say that that's not a real feeling. But in my work, what I work really hard to help people identify is that how to shift the language. It's not a syndrome, it's a phenomenon. And let me explain why that difference matters. When we call anything a syndrome, it's pathologizing. It makes us feel that there's something wrong with us. When we talk about it as a phenomenon, we can understand that there's an interaction happening that is what is leading us to feel that self-doubt, that experience. So when you're a person who has any marginalized identity, you are a person of color, you are first gen, you are a woman, whatever it might be, in your immediate and probably like not so immediate environment, you're constantly receiving messages that make you feel less than, make you feel that you are not enough. It could be something as small as walking into an office, seeing pictures of all of the past presidents or all of the past employees of the month, and seeing no one on that wall who looks like you, right? So that's a smaller way that we feel like it. Or as big as someone directly telling you, you don't belong here, right? And that would be in discouraging you from applying to college or discouraging you from applying for a promotion, saying that they don't think you're cut out for that. I'm sure, Vanessa, this has happened to you, but I know numerous times, especially as a Latina pursuing a PhD, there were times where people said, you don't need a doctorate to be a therapist. You don't need all of these things. And I'm like, do you tell that to everyone who tells you that this is what they're pursuing? Like, even in the middle of my program, I was struggling and I went to ask for help. I went to the Multicultural Center. I met with a fellow Latina. She's a Latina academic counselor. I said, I'm having a hard time. I need help. And she said, have you wondered if maybe this degree is not for you? And I was so upset. But I thought, like, what is that what you would say to anyone else who is struggling in a program that only like 1% of the country completes? Like, it's a hard program. Like, experiencing doubt is normal in this. And so we feel like imposters. But the reality is, I said, it's an interaction. That self-doubt, when you're doing something new for the first time, is normal. And when we normalize it and we say it's supposed to be hard, it's supposed to take time to learn, I'm not supposed to do this on my own, it doesn't need to be perfect, I don't need to know everything the first time, I'm not an expert, I'm not a genius, that can give us the grace that we need to overcome that emotion.
Yeah, and I really like how this is honestly the reason why I wanted you to be on the to host the LWC to begin with, was because your take on imposter syndrome. I really like how, for me, from what I hear from all of the times that I've heard you speak and read your articles and, you know, all of your posts, your newsletters, everything, right? And what you just said here, it's like the framing it from imposter syndrome to phenomenon like changes the source of the feeling. Instead of it being you and you're stupid and why would you ever let anyone tell you that way, because like you're so dumb, why would you let that happen? It's like that's not the source of imposter syndrome. It's not within you. It's like you said, it's external, and it's like the interactions that, whether intentional or not, exclude you, right? Like, I know that there are a lot of people who are like, I'm not racist, whatever, you know, white supremacy is not real, cool, but like when you, like as a teacher, I saw policies that were racist. And again, the people who wrote those policies, were they intentionally like, how can we screw over black people? Like, maybe that wasn't the thought that they were having, right? But when you have a policy that only targets girls, or a policy that only targets like boys, like with, I'm thinking specifically with sneakers, there was a policy where it was like they couldn't wear Jordans to school at a predominantly black school. Why can't you wear Jordans? Why can't we wear Jordans? Why? It's over policing. It just gives us another reason to write them up and get them in trouble. And after 3 times of wearing Jordans, you then have to go to ISS, in school suspension, and you lose a day of education because of the sneakers that you're wearing. And it's like, oh, anyone can wear Jordans, sure, but like culturally, who is wearing Jordans, right? Black people. So it's like those things ultimately are racist, right? And so whether or not it's intentional, or even the person who questioned whether or not your PhD was the route for you. Again, maybe her intention was being protective of you, of like, damn, this is gonna be hard. Like, bitch, are you sure? Because it's expensive and like you really don't need it. You can make a good life without a PhD. Like, are you sure that this is what you want? Maybe that wasn't her intention, but ultimately, like, these things are problematic and they cause the imposter phenomenon to come up within you because of these like microaggressions, because of these policies, because of the interactions that you're having. And so I love that you talk about that because, like you said, it's not like something's wrong with you.
Yeah, and I love how you frame that, Vanessa, with the intention, because you're right. Like, it's not always people's intention to make it so that someone feels excluded or they are incapable or whatever it might be. And it happens, right? That's what they're called, microaggressions. It happens. You know, I have another instance where I remember going to the Career Services Center. This is in my master's program. I did my master's at Columbia. And so I'm there and I want help with my resume because I'm applying to doctoral programs. And the person who helped me was very unhelpful and I felt very distressed about it. And so I went to the front desk and I said, I'd like another appointment with someone else. And I was feeling really tearful at this point because I was so upset. And the front desk individual, she looks at me and she's like, oh, honey, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I just need a new appointment and I want it to be with someone else. I just don't want this person anymore. And then she's like, can I see your resume? And I'm like, okay, sure. Like, I don't know, but you work here. Maybe you can help me in some way. She looks at my resume and she looks at me and she goes, oh, honey, sometimes in different countries, they do things in different ways. I sat there and I'm like, can I just have another appointment?
Jesus.
With someone else, please? It's like, I don't think her intention was definitely to try to help me.
Help you. She thought you didn't know how we did it in the United States, and so she's helping and telling you, and it's like, yeah, girl, I know that lady just sucks, and now you suck. Oh my God.
I literally came here for help because I knew that I needed help. I came here during the office hours because I was stuck and I was trying to figure out how to format this correctly. Like, what I'm showing you is a draft. It's not done, and that's why I'm here. And so I remember feeling so frustrated. I got another appointment, advocated for myself, but I share these experiences because, again, this is me, a woman of color. I'm an Ivy League institution. That receptionist was also a woman of color at this institution. And I was like, I can't.
And it's such a waste of time, right? Like, like you said, like, we're all busy, especially when you're going to college pursuing a degree, right? Like, you're probably working, you have friends, family in a different city, and then you go to these appointments and you have to advocate for yourself, and you go to someone else and then you have to advocate for yourself again. And it's like, other people don't have to do that. They don't have to waste the brain space, the brain power, the time in the day to do those things. And that's like the issue. The more time that people of color, trans people, queer people, women, the amount of time that we have to spend to take up space and to advocate for ourselves and to excel, it's such a waste of time. It's such a disservice to society. If we could like accumulate all that time that we've had to waste advocating for ourselves, we could use that time contributing something, having fun, being creative, relaxing, enjoying ourselves, and like producing something, solving issues. Like, there's such a wide range of things that we could do with that extra time. It's like, it's very frustrating, and I don't know. I'm glad that you are taking the time out of your career and like dedicating to this, and you're showing people like that it's possible by being your authentic self and doing these like culturally inclusive things. Like, I'm really glad to know you because you are part of the change, right? And like, me too, through the LWC and giving people platform, amazing, great, but I really like everything that you're doing, and that's why you're here on the podcast and the LWC. And
I want to connect what we're talking about to one last of the Trailblazer Toll pillars that Alejandra talked about, which is the lonely hustle. Because what we're talking about, but the experiences we share with our families and loved ones becomes wider and wider as we do more. But I think it also applies to how isolating the higher you climb, whether in your career or your academics, whatever it might be, it feels more and more isolating each step of the way, not just because there's less people who look like you, but also because there's so much more advocating that you have to do for yourself in spaces where you don't feel that you belong as it is, right? So this feeling of, damn, I have to advocate for myself again. I have to do this again. And then who gets this? Who gets how hard this is for me? Like, who do I get to share this with? Because I can't, my peers don't get it. My colleagues don't get it, right? My parents, it makes them feel more distant for me because they just, want to say, mija, échale ganas, like you can do this, si se puede, which is, how they can love me or love us, but it still feels really lonely.
100%. And I that resonates with me a lot because it's so exhausting that's like ultimately why I left teaching, was because I was so tired of continuing to fight for like administration and my colleagues to stop being racist toward the parents and to stop enforcing policies that negatively affect, black boys, dark-skinned people, people with disabilities. It was exhausting, right? So then I go to corporate and it's similar. It's similar, like advocating for myself, advocating for my voice, for my expertise, for what I bring to the table. And it's like, I'm lucky enough that I'm in a position today to be able to dedicate my time to the LWC and the podcast and creating content on social media. But it's like, if I lose that privilege tomorrow, right? Like, I have to go back to corporate, and that is so scary to me, and it doesn't have to be like that. And I really hope that we all just continue to work toward making work and school and all of our like public spaces inclusive of everyone, so we don't have to feel that way anymore. It's exhausting. It's not pleasant. I don't wish this on anyone.
No, and I really admire all of your journey. I've heard some of your story, I think, as we've talked about it. I think I also some of your past podcast episodes. But hearing more now, like I will say, like I feel really angry, if we're going to talk about anger, at like listening to you talk about some of these policies in place, thinking about what that must have been like for you as a teacher at the time to sit with that and be a voice for these students, and the pressure we feel when we're suddenly placed as the, what is it called? Is it cultural? No, there's a term for when an individual has all of the pressure that they need to be the ones to represent everyone in their culture, or be the one person who is trying to advocate for all of these children, the youth, and then to realize that the toll that's taking on you, to have to step away from that, knowing that the injustices are continuing, but self-preservation is necessary so that you can continue to do more. So I think as I hear you talk about things, it's like it's angering, because like I'm with you. It's like I think the reason we both are so passionate about the work that we do is because we see the injustices, we see the inequality, and we want to provide alternative paths for folks, right? Whether it's through imparting knowledge, right? Through your community learning, whether, it's accessing a resource that I created or we create, and at the end of the day, and I don't want to go full instruction, like professor mode here, but at the end of the day, what we want is, and I guess I'll say I want, and you can share if this is what you agree with, is I just want people to be educated enough so they can think critically about the choices that they make and how the choices they make impact themselves and others.
I feel like that's a whole other podcast episode. Specifically, if we go through like all of the things that we do just because society tells us that we should do. Like the first things that come to mind is like drinking alcohol. Like, do you really want to drink alcohol, or is just like is this what you do on New Year's Eve, or is this just what you do on your birthday? Like, or getting married and having kids. Like, do you really want to do that, or is this just like another box that you're checking off? I'm not saying that everyone is like that, right? But I think that there are a lot of things that that we do because we're just going through the motions and we're not consciously deciding for ourselves. And so, yeah, I definitely agree. And I will say that as a teacher who went through to get my degree in 2010, I graduated in 2016. So I think that's fairly recently in like the grand scheme of things, right? I think that like schools are doing a really good job of training teachers, or at least my school, William Patterson. They did a really good job of like having us foster that in our classrooms. They really advocated for us and taught us to be teachers that let students struggle through things. They did not want us to just give kids the answer and give them the information and just regurgitate what we told them. I think that's the old way of teaching. But I say all that to say that I do think that it is going in the right direction. Are the like institutions that are training teachers and training professionals, like, are they perfect? Absolutely not. That's not what I'm saying. But I do think that the shift is going in a positive way, and through us and people like us who are advocating for these things, taking up space and creating our communities and empowering other people, like, it's only going to continue. Even though the current administration is trying to undo that, like, go ahead, try to undo it, because there's a whole generation, there's lots of people out there that are trying to keep pushing the envelope in the right direction. So I don't know, I'm hopeful of the future. I know a lot of people aren't, but I specifically am careful of making sure that I surround myself with people like you, people who are speaking out about things, creating community, empowering people, and encouraging people to like be educated and make conscious decisions. So that's why I'm hopeful.
Yeah, and thank you. And I mean, I'm hopeful because there's folks like you, Vanessa. I'm just like, I love that we've connected. I can't wait for when we get to meet in person. It will happen. And, you know, you're one of the reasons I show up online, right? It's the community that I have on there now. And I feel so loved. I just want to note that you said earlier, you're like, oh, I saw that you weren't online. And I thought, I hope she's taking care of herself. And that helps. I feel so seen and so loved by that. And thank you so much for saying that to me earlier. So
I love that.
Yeah, I hope you feel the love from my end.
Of course.
Yeah.
I have friends who, before I even had like Chicklet podcast or the Latina Writing Comunidad, like before I even had that Instagram, I had my private personal Instagram, and the support that I had from actual like friends and family, it was like 15, 20 women who was like, whatever I posted, they were supportive of me. Yeah. I was like, well, if these 20 girls, these 20 women are like obsessed with me and they love everything that I post, I'm like, I'm just gonna start posting publicly, not just privately. So I made a separate account, and it's just like constantly being like, okay, what am I gonna do now? And it's just constantly like growing, and just keep going. That's it. Just keep being myself, keep going, keep talking, keep sharing. And what can you do? What am I gonna do? Stop? No, not an option.
Only stop when it's maybe we call it pausing to rest, pausing to smell the flowers, pausing to go on. Oh, well, for you, it's lifting. And I know we talk for you, pausing to go lift. And so, you know, it's pause to do the things that help us feel our joy, because we got to do this with the joy. Like, I want to be hopeful. I want to be joyful. Like, my parents didn't sacrifice so much, I don't even say my parents, my ancestors, like, they worked so hard to get to a generation where I have choices, where I have this joy, where I can hope for things. And yes, there's hardships, but psychologically, we talk about this, like, again, it's a whole other podcast, but your perspective does impact how hardship affects you long term, right? Sure. And so your perspective is impacted by how many resources you have to cope with whatever challenge you have on hand. So if you don't have resources, you start there with, how do I develop resources to cope, which is like, what fuels my body, what fuels my soul, what is that? Is it listening to music? Is it, working out? Is it talking to a friend? And build those resources so that you can cope then with the hardships and be hopeful even when you can't really see the light at the end of the tunnel.
I love that. And you know what, Alejandra in the book First Gen, she mentioned that too, about how she didn't even know that there were resources to access It's not like she knew of these things and she didn't know how to reach them. That was not the case. She didn't even know they existed.
Yeah.
And that's so common. And there are so many Latinas out there
Yeah.
that are in that space, like telling people about scholarships, telling people about all these resources. And so what a time to be alive. Thank you so much, Dr. Lisette. I'm going to put your link so that everyone can follow you in the notes. Thank you so much for being here. It was so beautiful. The next episode is going to be on the book Defectors by Paola Ramos with my good friend Ruby Garcia. If you liked this episode, be sure to subscribe, like, comment, and leave a review. You can also follow me on social media at Vanessa Schwipper. Thank you for listening. Bye.